Hello, good morning, and welcome. Welcome to our Small Business Guide to the Autumn Budget, part of our Prepare and Prosper program. It's quite hard to say prepare and prosper, let me tell you, it's not a piece. Part of our partnership with Lloyds Bank Academy, bringing you lots of help and advice for your business. And the goal of today is very practical Q&A, help and advice, what you're doing, how we can help you grow and prosper over the winter. So good morning, everyone. Good morning. There's a QR code on your screen, I think. You can go to that QR code and go and visit the Lloyds Bank Academy. Everything there is free to access. You don't have to be a Lloyds customer. Please do go and check it out because we love free help. We love free help and support. It's all good. Now, let me introduce my guest today, the very, very expert Lisa Conway-Hughes. Over to you, Lisa. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, I'm a financial advisor, so not an accountant for today, but a financial advisor, and I help all sorts of business owners, from very small business owners to large corporates with their money.
Amazing. Well, we are very excited. You have sent us in so many questions, so we're going to get through as many as we possibly can in the session. But always feel free to send in more. Now, what I want to say is there's already chat going off, which is amazing. But if you have any questions, pop them in the Q&A box, because then we never be able to find them in the chat box. So yeah, please put your questions in the Q&A box for us. Also, a bit of a reminder that we are for coming today, we're giving away one-to-one mentoring, because we know one of the challenges the businesses have is often that their questions don't fit into a nice, easily shareable question or something that's Googleable, and actually what you really want is to sit and have a chat with someone. So we're going to send you a link afterwards to access your one-to-one mentoring. So please do that. And when the feedback from the mentoring is so fabulous, and we know that it really helps businesses. So the screen is going to disappear, so you can see more of Lisa and I, which will be a joy for you. A joy. Lisa is looking very much more glowy than me this morning. I'm fighting a bit of a cold, but we're going to press on anyway. I'm going to start going through the questions, if that's okay. We're just going to jump on straight in. And I thought we'd start because it is what's grabbing the headlines from the budget with national insurance. Now, I just want to echo what Elisa said before. Neither of us are accountants. And the first thing that we would say is this is going to massively vary by business. So the first thing you should do is speak to your accountant. And Lisa, what if we don't feel comfortable speaking to our accountant?
No, I think so many people don't feel comfortable speaking to their accountant, and I think that means you haven't found the perfect match. I think you need to find an accountant that speaks your language, that you really understand, that you're not dreading the call every year or whenever it is. And I think really we need a proactive service rather than just a bookkeeper, really.
This is so true. Yeah. And I mean, putting it bluntly, if you don't feel comfortable talking to your accountant, get a new accountant. There's the accountants should be there for you to be able to call up and go, do you know what? I've seen on the news, I've read in the paper, there's been a thing on Twitter, yes, about national insurance going up. How does that affect me? So that's going to be the first question that you ask. But we're going to run through just some kind of high level things today, just to give you a bit of background on that. Lots and lots of questions on. So I'm going to jump straight in, if that's okay. So how will the budget affect freelancers? How will the budget affect sole traders? How will it affect self-employed people? So I'm going to jump straight in and say the changes to national insurance are to class 4 national insurance. So if you are self-employed, this is not impacting you. However, if you set yourself up as a limited company and you're paying yourself a salary via PAYE, you will be paying class 4 national insurance if you pay over a certain level. So it will impact you. And if you are doing that, as some businesses do, you are the one exception that you don't get employment allowance. Now, I'm going to do one of those. I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Rest is Politics podcast when Rory does a sidebar. So I'm going to do a sidebar, if that's okay, and do a little overview of national insurance and the changes that are coming in the budget. So sidebar, national insurance. If you're a business, you have employees, you are paying people via PAYE, this is going to impact you. The point that you start to pay employers' national insurance will drop this is from April next year. So bear in mind, this is not like today, tomorrow. This is April next year. This is going to drop, the 6th of April actually next year, it's going to drop from £9,100 to £5,000. So the point that you start paying it, it's got lower. The rate that you pay employers' national insurance is going up from 13.8% to 15%. However, the employment allowance, now the employment allowance is kind of a bit of a sort of cash rebate, money that the government sort of give you back on your national insurance up to a certain level. That is going up from £5,000 a year to £10,500 a year. And what that means is that lots of micro businesses are going to see a tax cut. Why is that, Lisa?
Well, I suppose they want us to grow and become more profitable and make more money.
No, that's very true. So the thing is, then the employer's national insurance is the employment allowance is a rebate on your whole employee national insurance bill. So if your whole national insurance bill never goes over 10,500 for the year, you're not going to pay any employer national insurance next year. And the government says that 865,000 businesses are not going to pay any national insurance next year. Then obviously the bulk of businesses after that are micro businesses. And depending, at some point, you're going to get big enough where you're going to tip over the top and you are going to start paying national insurance. But everyone now gets this £10,500 employment allowance. I'm going to talk you through a little example, and then we'll talk about, why you're not going to be impacted if you're a sole trader, etc. So if you're a micro business with, I'm going to pop this in the chat as well, because it can be a bit hard to kind of follow along. If you're a micro business with 4 staff, UK average wage, 31,500. On the old system, you were paying £3,091.20 national insurance per staff member for a total annual national insurance of £12,365. You got the £5,000 employment allowance, so the total for the year was £7,365. That was your total amount you paid per year. On the new system, you are paying more per staff member, so £3,975 per staff member, partly because it's gone up, partly because the boundaries have gone down. That's a total of £15,900. But you're getting the new employment allowance of £10,500, so your total per year is £5,400. So actually, it's a tax cut of about £2,000. So this is what I mean by, if you're a micro business, you might have got a tax cut in the budget, which is why you need to talk to your accountant because it's going to be different by business. But generally, if you've got a relatively small staff, if they're not on hugely high wages, you're not going to see a massive tax rise. The chances are you might see a tax cut. And if you are a sole trader or if you are self-employed, then you are then this doesn't impact you because it's class 4 national insurance. So I think to answer the question about freelancers, again, it depends. Are you set up as a limited company? If so, the one exception to the employment allowance is limited companies with one employee that is the owner. So you don't get that 10,500. Now, some people are advised by their accountants to pay themselves a small wage, so maybe about 12 grand, and then the rest in dividends, in order to kind of maximize their tax around this. So what they might want to speak to their accountant about is they might want to drop that wage, shift over to dividends. It's going to very much depend on you and your circumstances. Dividend tax didn't change in the budget. No changes. No change. So I think one of the things for a lot of these questions is going to be, it depends. But broadly, hopefully that will kind of point you in the right direction. I've heard a lot, Lisa, I'm interested in your thoughts on this. I have heard a lot of fear from people about all the news about national insurance and a lot of concerns. And of course, entrepreneurs, small traders, small businesses, micro businesses can be set up in lots of different ways. And I think people are a little bit confused about how it impacts them. What are you hearing?
Well, I think people are worried. You only have to turn the radio on in the morning and people are small. There's always a small business on the radio being really worried at the moment. And I think the government's really missed a trick on highlighting the fact that they've more than doubled this allowance, so that some people actually will be better off. And I think if you don't know that you're going to be better off, you might not be brave enough to plan to hire your next member of staff or your next bit of tech or kit to help you grow that little bit further. So I think working out your numbers can help you make some really good decisions if you are going to get a cut.
I think that's so important. And, you know your numbers. It's one of the things that we're often a bit like, I don't know, my numbers are scary. There's so much power in that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. I heard a Deborah Meaden podcast the other day, and she was basically saying she hates numbers until she learned that numbers actually were her window to the future when she understood them. So yeah, I think it's a good thing to know your numbers.
So there's a couple of questions following on from this, just to tick them off as we go. Does the drop for national insurance take effect for 25-26? So 24-25 tax year, is it? Yes. So yeah, that is basically yes. So the change doesn't happen until the 6th of April 2025, which is the 25-26 tax year. So the 9.1k is the level for this tax year until end of March, beginning of April. Becca asks, do we know why freelancers with limited companies are exempt from employment allowance? Why really, and why really? Any thoughts?
I think Rishi Sunak started the campaign against the sole director earner during COVID and made it very clear that they weren't going to get any support. So I think it's a hang. I mean, I don't know, but I feel it's to do with this IR35 legislation, making people sure that they're a limited company for the right reasons. I think is probably why.
I think I mean, that's broadly the sense that we get. And I think the idea is that they don't want you to set up as a limited company to avoid tax or what's the word? Minimize your tax bill, to set up as a limited company because you are a company. And if you are self-employed, then set up as self-employed and pay taxes that way. I think that's what sits behind it broadly, and why they don't have the employment allowance. I can't see that changing in the near future, to be honest. I think if they were going to change it, it would have got changed in this budget. But no, that certainly hasn't changed. But because those boundaries have changed, it is worth having that conversation with your accountant, because it might be that there's a better way of optimizing what tax you're paying, or it might be that you're better off setting up in a different way. So yeah, give your friendly local accountant a call. You know, lots of lovely small business accountants. They're really nice. They're really nice. There's a few more questions on national insurance. I don't want to stick on national insurance the whole session. So we talked a little bit about what the change means to business. That doesn't impact if you're self-employed. There's a question about the staff pay national insurance. What are the exemptions for micro businesses with turnover over 85,000? Well, so there aren't exemptions. I think the 85,000, I don't know whether that was kind of a VAT. Yeah, that boundary changed as well. So slightly higher. It doesn't make any difference if you're VAT registered or not VAT registered. This is just about the employees.
I did see, if people are wondering, how do I even begin to start to calculate pre and post these changes? If you just Googled employer NI calculator, there's loads on there. There was one, I saw one on the Telegraph, and then loads of accountants have got them. So you could just play around with them yourself without actually having to physically crunch the numbers yourself, if that's putting you off.
Absolutely. And one of the complexities that we're also hearing, of course, is minimum wage has gone up, which again is going up from April. So not right now. You've got a bit of time to plan. So minimum wage will go up from April. So just to kind of, again, do my little sidebar, what does that mean? Where do I find my minimum wage data? 2 seconds. So minimum wage. This is not going to affect everyone, but it will affect you. And of course, if you've got minimum wage going up and you've got national insurance changes, there's a few moving parts. So again, you might want to have a little look at that. So about 16% of all small business staff are on the minimum wage. It doesn't affect everyone, and it does tend to disproportionately impact retail, hospitality, also the construction sector. See a lot in there. There's an increase to the over 21 minimum wage of 6.7% to £12.21. This is why I needed my notes as specific numbers. So that's an annual increase of £1,400 to a full-time worker. And then obviously that's going to have national insurance is also going to be applied on top of that. So you'll need to calculate that as a whole. Younger workers, what they're looking to do over time is to move to a single minimum wage for all ages. So at the moment they're just closing the gap. So for 18 to 20-year-olds, that's moving to £10 an hour minimum wage, which is an increase of 16.3%. It's actually an increase of £2,500 a year for a full-time employee. There's about 200,000 of those young people across the UK. So if you're thinking about making those calculations, have a think, do you have any staff on minimum wage? And then you need to look at the impact of national insurance on top of that as well. And one of the things that, there's a few questions come in, and Lisa, I'm interested in your thoughts on this about planning, about thinking ahead, and about thinking to next year. And I think that businesses are, a little overwhelmed by all the changes that are coming through. And then if you're thinking about how many staff do I have, how many do I need next year, what's my budget, and so many businesses I talk to don't make a 12-month plan nobody's got a 5-year plan. I don't have a 5-year plan. What are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this? Should we be planning more?
Yeah. We should definitely plan more. I think sometimes people are scared by the sheet of paper. Probably the nature of my personality, but I love a 5-year plan. And even if it's wildly optimistic and it feels like I could never achieve it, I get a little bit of a kick out of that. And I try to make that 5-year plan only about, let's say 130% believable. 100% I feel I could do, and then I do it a third more. And then I work back. So what would I really need to do to achieve that massive goal? 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 4 year, 5 years. And it's usually in that 3 to 4 year period where I realize actually I'm on track. I thought it was going to be really hard. So I think it can be a good confidence boost. They always say you underestimate what you can achieve in a day. You overestimate what you can achieve in a day, but underestimate what you can achieve in 10 years. So I think it's a really good thought. I always have that anyway. And I've heard, again, I'm an avid Radio 4 in the morning listener, and last week especially, there were a lot of hospitality businesses and small businesses talking about the things that they're going to do is change shift patterns, change opening hours, and see what they can do with the existing budget that they have, how they can move their staff around to try and keep that cost base the same. I saw on the news last night, surge pricing for a pint is being tried out in Soho. So if you go for a pint at 10 o'clock, it's £2 more expensive than, say, at 9 o'clock. And they're saying, well, we need to allocate more staff to that time of day because we need bouncers and you're a rowdy lot. So it costs more to us to have you in at 10 than it would at 8. So I think businesses are trying all sorts of things to try and make the books balance, especially in those sectors, like you say, hospitality, retail.
I was thinking that forewarned is forearmed, though. So knowing, particularly, in hospitality and retail, there's quite a few questions on those, and there were multiple changes in the budget actually that impacted those sectors. So it is good to start having a plan for April onwards. And we did get questions on business rates, which is harder to answer. So I'm going to do our best on that one. But if you are in those sectors, you're seeing a rise to minimum wage, you're seeing a rise to national insurance, and you're seeing changes to your rates bills, it is worth maybe taking a little bit of time out, maybe sit down with your accountant and make a bit of a plan for next year, because what you don't want is it to be a bit of a shock. And actually, often things are not as bad as you think. So, make a bit of a plan, and also you've got some time to make a bit of a plan, which is good. There's a question in the Q&A around VAT registration, why you need to register to be VAT. And I just wanted to dip into that a little bit. We're not going to go too much on VAT because it didn't change during the budget, but I get, we've kind of touched on that. So if your business is earning more than £90,000 a year in revenue, then you need to be registered for VAT. It's, I would say, relatively straightforward. You can do it on gov.uk. you literally Google VAT registration and you can register your business. It means that you need to report your VAT and pay your T on a regular basis to HMRC. One of the things, and I have more questions about this actually, that we're going to start seeing going forward is making tax digital. So smaller businesses, sole traders, self-employed, all of this is moving towards making tax digital, which means that you are going to need to file your taxes digitally. And I have a point to this. I would look now, whether you are at the VAT threshold, whether you currently need to file your taxes digitally or not, get yourself some accounting software, because this is going to make your life a lot easier now and in the future. And a lot of this software does this stuff for you automatically. I'm not, there are many software available. I want to kind of call out one in particular. A lot of them, particularly at a sort of entry level, really, really inexpensive to pay for. It will suck in your bank details. I know. See, we're working with Lloyd's Academy, and they, your bank details from Lloyd's will flow through to, for example, Xero or QuickBooks. So you don't have to kind of key everything in. You can automatically upload your invoices and receipts. It's going to make your life a lot quicker and a lot easier. You can basically have a remote bookkeeper who just kind of does that stuff for you. And it means with things like making tax digital, which is going to start applying soon, but also if you need to start filing VAT returns, maybe every quarter, that's all going to be done automatically by the system as well. So I think if the one thing I would say, start it while you're little, start it while you're small, because it can be a bit of a pain to kind of transfer it over. And what you'll find is that things get more and more tricky as you get more and more going on in your business if you're not doing that. And it's going to take a lot of pain away. What do you think, Lisa?
Well, if you're allowed to say it, I love those softwares.
You're allowed to say that. It's good.
Yeah. Because, doing the inputting and balancing the books is always a job I would put off until, it'd become an annual job. I'd put it off that much. So the way I got round it was Monday morning, before I do anything in the office, it's half an hour into QuickBooks, sorting out all of my stuff. And then I've got one of those receipts apps as well. So it sends all my receipts there. And it literally is a half an hour. And then I just love having a look inside for 15 minutes at all the financial bits, like the ratios, how I'm improving, what was it like this time last year compared to this year, this week, this time last year. So I can just really make sure that I'm just gradually improving. I think that's what all we're trying to do as business owners, is gradually increase. So yeah, a good habit to get into, I think.
Really good habit, really good. Start these habits whilst you're growing and whilst you're little, and that's going to really kind of do you well. I see Gail's dropped a link. Lloyds Bank have got a lovely 3 module. It's for free to access a module on making tax digital. So go and have a look at that. That's going to help you out. I think we're going to talk about that more as well. One of the things I did mention in the budget was a final time for making tax digital live. It's been kind of in the offing for years and years, and it's been put back, but this is kind of where the world's going. So let's get yourself there. Do you know what? Nobody wants a pile of receipts. You just, that world is gone. It's going to give you a lot more flexibility. I think Stefan's dropped a question in there, which I could kind of vaguely mention about business rates. Yeah, let me just quickly go into business rates, and then we're going to talk a little bit about financial planning. I want to get Lisa's thoughts on this. Business rates, the discount has gone down from 75% to 40%. So yes, in business rates will go up because the discount has changed. However, there's a couple more things happening which are not quite fixed yet. So what they're looking to do is a freeze on the small business multiplier, but over time, what they have committed to in the budget is that small business rates will come down and larger business rates will go up. That particularly around, big out-of-town warehouses, online platforms will start paying more of the rates bill, and smaller businesses, high street businesses, paying less. There is I can't think what it's called, like a sort of, like a open for evidence, process.
Consultation.
Thank you. That's the word, consultation. I think the word, it's about to start on this, and lots of people are chipping in on it. But this was in the Labour's manifesto for the budget, not for the budget, for the election, that they wanted to fundamentally rebuild business rates. I don't think they're going to go completely, but the goal is to put more of that burden on bigger businesses and less of it on smaller businesses. So broadly, what that means, the expectation is your rates are going to go up a bit in April, but then should come down the following year. And that's sort of how things are looking to go. So yeah, if you are, and that's particularly retail, hospitality and leisure, who are getting the discounts at the moment, if you're in those sectors, that rates discount is going to drop. So you will be paying a bit more rates from April, but it should go down longer term. Hopefully that's helpful. I know it's not helpful to tell you what the long term is because they haven't really announced it yet, but they have announced a direction of travel, which I think is encouraging, hopefully. Right. Financial management and support. So there's quite a lot of questions in this actually, and I'm interested in your thoughts, Lisa. So, and I think we can talk about this a little bit. How do we navigate these additional costs when sales are down? And this has been a question that's come up a lot actually, because it's been kind of flat this year. Right at the beginning of the year, we're teetering on recession. Although we're not technically in recession, it has kind of been flat, and we've had a cost of living crisis, and there's been a lot for businesses to cope with, and consumer spend has been down, and a number of costs are going up. Now, there is some of that. It is a tax cut on the national insurance for a lot of micro businesses, but for some businesses, costs are going up. What's the first thing that you're going to think about in that situation?
Cash. I think in all of these things, cash is sanity. So having a plan to build up your cash, I think is really, really important. And I have to play I have to play myself off at my own game, if you see what I mean. So every Monday morning, when I see what money's come in, if I see a good balance in our business account, I really want to go and spend it on a new marketing idea, a new bit of shiny stuff that's going to make my business grow. So every Monday, I squirrel money out of the current account and into a savings account, so that so I've got the way I organise it. I've got my corporation tax and other tax account. I've got my profit account where I'm trying to work towards a certain profit margin, which some months works, some months doesn't work. And then my emergency cash buffer down below. And I'm not there yet, but I would really like to get that to a year's worth of cash. I think that would be me. I mean, imagine the feeling waking up on a Monday morning knowing you've got a year's worth of cash in the business. I think it would transform the way I worry about things often. So that's my big goal. But yeah, I think it's cash. Cash is sanity through the highs and the lows, and it gives you freedom to make braver choices as well once you've got that there.
I think that's really important, and I think the thing that's always sticks in my mind is the beginning of COVID. If you remember 16,000 years ago, 2020, when we went into lockdown, and we were maybe 6 or 8 weeks in and talking to businesses every day, a bit like this, and businesses saying that they haven't really looked at their numbers. They don't really know what their cash situation is. They don't really know what their cash flow forecast. They don't have a cash flow forecast. They don't know how profitable different activities are in the business, because they've looked at it for years, and this was the first time, because they're in crisis mode, that they'd actually really looked at it. And so some people, it was a pleasant surprise. Some people less so. But either way, information is key. What we've seen since then is we kind of come out of kind of crisis mode, little crises still going on, and we've kind of got out of that habit. We're not doing that regular kind of check-in, doing a regular, what is my cash flow forecast for the next 6 months, the next year? And I mean, I love the idea of having a pot which has got a year's cash sitting in it. Feels like a halcyon dream for a lot of businesses, but actually having, knowing that you have a buffer. So a lot of these things you can plan for, because we know now kind of what the situation is going to be for some of these costs have been announced in the budget for April next year. So we do have a little bit of time to plan. However, stuff happens. it always happens. Things come up that you can't foresee, and knowing that you have a bit of a buffer, that you don't have to panic. And often we don't make great decisions when we're panicked. Is going to give you a lot of comfort to know that you're doing all right. So start thinking now. If you're worried about sales are a bit down, we're a bit worried about additional costs coming in, start thinking about, can we kind of put a bit aside? Can we make sure that we've got a little bit of a buffer come April? There's a question around what financial support can a business expect. Interestingly, not really any financial support in the budget main speech. However, there were a few things in the notes that I wanted to pull out. Just a couple of bits and bobs. Some things going on. So British Business Bank has been funded for startup loans and a few other programs for another year, which is really encouraging. If you are in the first few years, you don't have to be an actual startup, like literally just starting. In the first couple of years of your business, you could access a startup loan from British Business Bank, which is interesting. We know lots of businesses have done that, and it's always worth going to have a conversation with them. They've got some new products as well. There's Help to Grow program, which is a program for businesses with 5 employees or more, and it's massively funded by the government. That's been funded for another year. It's delivered by business schools, local business schools in your area, and lots of those are now delivered online. Some of them are actually sponsored as well. Some of them are funded, so you can access it completely for free. So do go and have a look at Help to Grow. If you've got less than 5 employees, come and have a look at our Small and Mighty program, because we do free programs as well. I've realised there was a pop, I think came up from Gail with, taking control of your revenue and cash. So another great session. Go and check that one out. Gail just popped that one in the chat as well. So that's another one to give you a sense of control. Other stuff, there were a few bits and bobs mentioned around some pilots around digital skills training for small businesses. It's about 4 million for local pilots. The other thing was the Shared Prosperity Fund. We get questions all the time about grants. Everyone loves a grant, hey Lisa? Who doesn't love free money? We saw a lot of grants from the EU pre-2016, and actually lots of them kind of carried on. It was quite a sort of a long tail of the grants coming from the EU. And they were sort of replaced by Shared Prosperity Fund grants around the country, which is quite inconsistently delivered. So it's not like there's a grant for becoming sustainable in this area and there's exactly the same in another area. It is delivered locally. So that money is kind of delivered kind of local councils around the country. It's worth having a look, though. I think something like 900 million committed to. So it is they've slightly reduced it, but it's carrying on. Shared Prosperity Fund that is spread around the country. The best thing I would say to do is to contact your local council and get on some mailing lists, because it might not be that they've got anything now, but there might be grants and programs coming up at some point in the future that might be good for you. So make sure you're kind of front of the line when things do get announced. The only thing I would bear in mind with some of these grants is that a lot of them are match funding. So they're not just going to give you the cash. You may need to put in the same amount. So if you commit to a project, they will give you 50% of that project. There are some sustainability ones. I don't know, might be, I'm making this up, by the way, installing solar panels, for example, and they'll pitch in half and you pitch in half. The other thing is often the funding comes in at a delay. So you might need the cash flow up front and then the grant funding comes in a bit later. We've got some sessions on grants. And I know it's one that people always ask about. And if you ask people, what kind of support would you like? The number one is grant, because of course we want the free money. But I think it's not always the easiest route and not always the right route for your business. So I would always have a think about that. And what are your thoughts on grants, Lisa?
Well, this probably shows my naivety, but I just assume that I'm never eligible for any. So I think I've learned from today to actually go and have a Google. I've written that down, the Help to Grow program, because I just assume there's nothing out there for me. So maybe the lesson is to have a look.
Always have a look. Always have a look. Do you know what? It always takes me back how much support there is for small businesses in the UK. It's such a great country to start and grow a business. people out there want you to succeed, like really do want you to succeed. Like Gail is just sharing all of these different courses, all free to access. It's all like anyone can do it any time of day. You can do it in the middle of the night. Don't do it in the middle of the night, but you could if you wanted to. There's so much out there, and what the challenge is often when businesses don't know that this help is available. I think it's really encouraging when when they do put these things into the budget saying they are going to continue to fund these programs. I would like to see more comms around that. A lot of this stuff wasn't in the main budget speech, certainly didn't get the headlines. So we want to know that businesses want to know that there is some good stuff coming, and I think we should highlight that a little bit more. There's a few little comments coming in. I'm just going to dip into those. Looking at applying for grants is a full-time job in itself. Yeah, I mean, I get that. Often it's not the right route. It can be quite a draining process. So the thing I would say is I wouldn't rely on grants as a route. And I know that for some CICs or some charities, it's absolutely a route that they need to go down. If your business can avoid relying on grants and you can focus on driving your revenue and maximizing your bottom line, that's going to be a better route for you. Partly because grants do come and go. Like, it might be around one year, it's not around the next year. Like we've seen the European ones have gone, the shared prosperity's come back. At some point, shared prosperity is going to change as well. So I think, I wouldn't rely on that as a route. And to that point, it can be a bit soul destroying doing the application process. Let's dip into some more questions. Investments and future proofing. This is a bit, how long is a piece of string? But I'm going to ask the question because you've sent it in. What should I be investing money in to help my business grow with the new budget? What do you reckon, Lisa?
Well, I put 3 things down, and they're really the things that I'm focused on. So it's not a concise list, but bigger cash buffers, things to drive efficiency, and getting each member of staff doing their highest value tasks. So if I'm going to be paying people more, I want them to be more efficient, and maybe taking away the tasks that they shouldn't be doing at that pay rate and giving it to somebody else. And then anything I can do to increase staff productivity. So I couldn't believe you could do it for a full day, but last month we had an exceptional session really just on how to be efficient with admin, how to run your email box, how to make sure that email box isn't your job, if you know what I mean, that it's not taking up the whole day. So we did that. We've got things lined up for the rest of the year on being better at Excel, just being better at all different things. I've introduced Copilot to our team this year. We tried it. It's part of Microsoft Teams. So I used to spend at least half an hour after a client meeting typing up all the notes. And literally I can just press write me the notes, and within 10 seconds Copilot's written me all the notes for the client meeting that we just had. So I think seeing what you can do, and I think it was something like maybe 500 quid for the year, the license, something like that. And so when I consider our hourly rate saving me half an hour after every meeting, that really, really helped push towards that efficiency goal that I've got for the team.
I love that. And actually thinking about efficiency is we spend so much time thinking about the top line. Actually, like the bottom line is the one that counts.
Yeah.
We can do things quicker, we can do things more effectively, we can do things more productively. I mean, you know what, productivity gets talked about a lot. That always comes up in the budget. It's such a boring word. Do
you know something that I love doing in this goal of productivity? We actually asked the team, what bits of the job do you love, which bits are the jobs that you hate? And there's always the jobs that everyone hates that we just can't eliminate, but we were able to redistribute the jobs between the teams. So people were doing the bits that they loved mainly. And I think that was lovely. And then we got really lucky in our latest member of staff. She actually loves doing, she says that she's excited to come to work because she loves her list of jobs. And they were actually the list of jobs that a lot of people didn't want to do. So yeah, that's a way of making. I think if you're making staff happier, thereby byproduct will be more productive. So little changes can actually have a big impact. And I think we've got a duty of care to make our staff as happy as possible.
Absolutely. I mean, I completely agree. And I mean, one of the things, and to touch on this a little, they did mention it in the budget, but it's also coming alongside it is the employment rights bill, employee rights bill. That's going through its second or third reading. There is a new bill coming through, which is, and we can send you a link that has all the kind of main points on the new employee rights bill. And we've talked about this quite a lot. This wasn't announced in the budget, but they did reference it a few times in the budget because it will make some changes to how you employ staff. But the goal kind of sitting behind it is to have happier staff, and the idea is that happier staff will lead to better businesses. There's some things that I certainly wouldn't panic about it. I think there's been quite a lot of kind of very heated rhetoric about it in the press, but it's definitely better to look at the individual points and see how it impacts you. Most small businesses are not HR experts, unless you're an HR business, which maybe you are. But most of it, we're not. And we don't have HR teams because there's like 4 people in the business or 5 people in you own the business, you're head of everything. So you might be outsourcing that. So when changes come in that do affect employee rights, it can be a bit terrifying because getting your head around it's time consuming, it's worrying because you're not an expert, and creates a lot of stress for businesses. So just like the stuff with finances, get some information, arm yourself, find out the situation. You might be able to talk to your accountant, but maybe if you've got someone who runs your payroll, who runs your HR, go and speak to an HR expert. Lots of small businesses, I'm not going to charge you very much for this. And there's quite great free sessions out there as well. We're going to do more sessions on the employee rights bill as well as it comes along. So do check that out. There's a few things to bear in mind. It's going to be things like entitlement to sick pay from day one. It's going to be entitlement to parental leave from day one. And often this is not going to affect you and your business. It's going to be entitlement to flexibility. But as a business, you can say no. So long as it's reasonable to say no. So for example, you can't work from home because you work in a workshop. You need to be in the workshop. It's completely reasonable. You can't work from home because I run a restaurant. You're working in the restaurant. Completely reasonable. So I wouldn't panic about some of these changes, but I would have a look at them. They got talked about quite a lot in the budget. And then the other thing that they talked about in the budget was a small business strategy, which they've called a small business command paper, which is kind of the oddest titled thing. I don't really know what a command paper means, but it's basically a small business strategy. This is being developed at the moment. It was announced in the budget, and it's going to be launched like spring next year. The goal with this is, bear in mind all these changes, the financial changes, plus changes to employee rights. How is the government as a whole making sure that they think about small businesses in every part of government? So this should be every department that's thinking about it. And it might be government procurement, or it might be regulations and policy. But how are we making sure that small businesses are looked after? One example of that is things like the employment allowance increase. So acknowledging that really small businesses need to be protected from some of these cost rises. So putting a different policy in place for really small businesses. Now, there's going to be a lot over the next couple of months, giving people an opportunity to feed into that strategy. So if you have any thoughts, I'd definitely look out for that. We're going to be doing some feeding into that strategy too. And I think they haven't said exactly when it's coming out, but it's sort of springtime next year, which can be, spring in the UK can be a little bit dodged, as you know. But I think like April seems like a good time. March, April, May. Yeah, something like that. A few comments. I hope Small Business Britain will be on strategy. Yes, we are involved. We are feeding into that on lots of different levels. We're racing through the time. I'm going to see if we've got time for a few more questions whilst we are here. We've talked about national insurance quite a lot. National insurance probably was the biggest area of questions. Small business.
You want me to give you a run through of the sort of checklist that I've been going through with my clients out of this budget?
Yes, let's do that. I'm going to running through all the questions because a lot of them on national insurance, and I don't want to run through that again. You, Lisa, go.
So I think the main thing is pensions. I think we got away really lightly. I was really expecting big pension changes, and we know that 2026 is potentially going to be another big change time. So I think if you're close to retirement, or we already know that small business owners don't pay enough into their pensions. So whatever you can do to be maxing out pensions will really help you, but also reduce your corporation tax. Capital gains tax, although it's gone up, I think we got away lightly as well. I was expecting much bigger hikes. And again, we're told 2026, keep an eye out because maybe there's going to be big changes again there.
Just on the numbers on that, so the capital gains is going up from 10% to 18% at the lower rate from April next year, and 20 to 24% at the higher rate. So it's going to depend on how much you're paying. Again, talk to your accountant.
And it's also affected how you sell your business as well. So the tax that you'll pay is going up on selling the business too. So I think thinking about your exit strategy, it's always, even if it feels a long way off, I think having a think about that and what it looks like under the current rules are really important. I think the government, it feels to me that what's brewing under the surface is a whole inheritance tax reform. I don't know, might be wrong, but I would be looking at clients having their articles of association, their business wills, all squeaky clean and sorted in preparation for this. And also thinking if you are a business that's going to have succession planning, I think you really need to get organised with that as well. I think those are the main things. So give us a kick.
So there has, I saw one question on this, not a lot of questions on this because it is a relatively niche, but there's been a lot in the news about inheritance and particularly passing on businesses and passing on farms. And the farms has been, that's been a huge thing. So there's some variations, but broadly, if you have a slightly bigger farm, I'm paraphrasing here, you are going to start to have to pay an inheritance tax in a way that was that you got tax relief on before. Now, the government says that sort of 75% of farms are not going to pay any tax at all. This is, a kind of a minority. I think that there's a lot of discussion about it at the moment. If you're interested in having a conversation about this, I would send you towards the Family Business UK. Family Business UK, who obviously are experts on family business and look a lot at inheritance and passing businesses down. And they're having a lot of conversations about this at the moment. I know a lot of their members are really concerned about this and estate management, and how there are different rules for farmland versus business property, and having a bit of a think about that, particularly if you are thinking about retiring or handing the business over to the next generation. So yeah, there are some changes in that. It's definitely worth thinking about. But I think to echo your point, actually, Lisa, I think there was an expectation that capital gains tax and business asset disposal, the used to call entrepreneurs relief, which is a bit easier to talk about. So when you sell your business or you sell bits of your business, that tax was going to go up a lot. And actually, it's still lower than other taxes. Yeah, so you are still getting a tax break on those for your business. So at least for the next couple of years, but it'd be worth keeping an eye on that over time. Thinking that any other little bits and bobs that were in there that might be interesting. So lots of things didn't change, and actually we had some questions about that. So corporation tax didn't change. That's still 25%, and they've committed to keeping it there at least for a bit. So that's one less thing. Of course, you've got to make profits in order to pay corporation tax. So let's go back to thinking about being productive. Very important. The one thing actually that on the productivity side and thinking about your co-pilot is AI for small businesses, and the massive increase we've seen in the number of productivity tools that are AI driven, and actually the incredible take up we've seen for small businesses on those. And that's probably one of the gaps. So there has been this money for digital skills pilots, which we're hoping is going to include AI, but it's really quite small. And it is a bit of a gap at the moment. So I think the small business strategy, we're hoping is going to include more on AI, because the productivity gains for you and your business could be huge. You know, like to sort of Lisa's points, it might not be that new member of staff who's got that list of things that you don't like to do. It could be your AI assistant that's doing all those things that you don't like to do, and that could, you know, significantly help your what you can get done in a day. You know, you can just get more done in a day, make you more efficient, and then you can kind of focus on driving money for your business. Other things,
it's helpful as well for the AI thing, when I just signed up to Copilot, I got, well, I'm sure there's loads, but I just did a half-day training session on Copilot, free by Microsoft, and it just sort of showed you what it could do. And then the second half of the training was a day in a life of a business owner using Copilot as the AI. Some were relevant to me, some weren't, but I mean, just amazing. If you, like, for example, the biggest thing for me is, say a client jumps into the diary at the very last minute and I need to find out what was the last thing I did with that client, what's happening, just ask Copilot and it collates all the last bits of communication, documents that we've prepared for that client, all in one place. So I can quickly read sort of a 15-minute job rather than, again, an hour's prep for a meeting. So there's, it's been brilliant for us. And I'm sure I've only just scratched the surface of what it can do.
I completely agree. I'm a massive fan of huge fan of AI and what it can do for your business. And there's so many great there's so much great free training out there. Go and have a look on the Lloyd's Academy. I know there's loads of training on there as well. But one of the things to bear in mind with this is it's changing constantly. We are right at the early days of what I think is going to be a kind of a digital revolution, really, in what is available to small businesses. But even now, you know, as an example on the topic of the budget, you can put into AI, you know, this is what my costs are now. This is the changes. Like, give me an idea about what I'm going to be paying from April. Give me an idea about what I need to think about, and it can help. It's like having a really clever assistant. I wouldn't rely on it completely and always check the results and always kind of look more deeply, but it's gonna help you sift through. It's gonna help you think a bit more clearly. And I think that's a game changer. I think it's kind of revolutionizing how businesses do stuff. We've got to the point now in my team that they just ask ChatGPT everything. They don't really Google stuff anymore. You know, because you've got to sift through the results. ChatGPT's like, here's what I think. Sorry, Lisa.
I was going to say, do you want me to talk about some pension stuff that's in the chat?
Yeah, I was literally about to jump on that. We've got 5 minutes left. Let's talk about some pensions. So
I think I really don't want people to feel disheartened about pensions. I think you've just got to have a completely different strategy. So a lot of my clients, especially the wealthier ones, we would have historically used pensions as a way to pass money on to the next generation. And pensions really were a way to get money out of the company, put it in the pension, never spend it during your lifetime because you've got other assets, and then pass it on to your kids. Now we can't do that because there's going to be this double taxation if you die after 75. Pensions will be subject to inheritance tax from 2027, but to receive it, the kids would also pay tax at their highest marginal rate. So what I'm working on with clients is a strategy where we reprioritize the spending order. So we prioritize pension planning from 2027 to be spent first, and the other assets that we were going to use, that's where we can do the clever plan to get that out of the estate. So it's just about reordering things. So please don't feel too disheartened about don't feel disheartened at all about pensions. I think there's ways around it with good financial management.
I think making a plan seems to be the order of the day, whether it's planning for April, planning for national insurance rises, planning for your pension, planning for, and there's a question there about recession. Is there a looming recession? I don't think there's a looming recession. I do not have a crystal ball. My feeling is I think the consumer spend has been down, but it's starting to recover a bit. We are seeing interest rates have come down again. I don't think they're going to we're not going to go back to like 0% interest rates. I mean, what do you think, Lisa?
No, we've got to get used to it. We're about right. I think the last time I looked, long-term averages on bonds were saying that the rates are going to settle around 3.5% in the medium term. So that's probably what we've got to get used to, 3.5%, 4%.
So chances are they will come down again, but they're not going to go right back down to what they were before. But it is, as they start to come down, as inflation has come down, we haven't really been able to feel the benefits of that because it's only really recent and we've had such high inflation last year. But gradually, I think we will see recovery. One of the goals with the budget was, things like increasing minimum wage and was to try and put a little bit more into people's pockets. There was no increase to personal taxes. The idea being that, and there's, there's lots of taxes that won't increase, corporation tax, dividend tax, lots and lots of things. Micro businesses been protected from the increase in national insurance to try and get a little bit more spent. And actually, we're seeing lots of really positive indicators for the Christmas season. The season coming up, the big spend time of year. And even if you're not B2C, that does then trickle down, through supply chains. I think things are looking better. It's not going to be this kind of glory days, halcyon new world, like immediately overnight. But things are definitely. Hello, what's going on? There we go. We're not going to see like an overnight kind of everything's kind of brilliant, but things are gradually getting better. And I think that's encouraging. I think that is encouraging. So make your plan, get your ducks in a row. I would feel optimistic about 2025. I think things are gradually starting to look better. There's lots and lots of help and support. Make sure you book your one-to-one mentoring session. If you're sitting there thinking, how is this going to relate to me? How do I make a plan? Come and sit down with a mentor. Come and have a good chat. Talk through the things that might be worrying you about your business. Do go and check out the other training on Lloyds Bank Academy. Really, there's loads, really loads. Never try and do it on your own. There's really fantastic financial advisors like Lisa. Like she said, don't worry about pensions. We can make a plan. You can always make a plan. Doesn't matter what's going on. You can always make a plan. And, don't try not to. I know it's really natural as a small business in the dark hours of the night to sit on your own and think, I'm all on my own here and no one else has been through this before. I promise you, someone's been through it and they found a way out. Please do share your feedback. There's a QR code on there. There's also a QR code to visit the website and go and check out some of that free training. I just want to finish by saying thank you so much, Lisa. I've loved the chat today. There's so much we could talk about. There's a lot going on. And we will be back next week to answer some more questions. So please do join us. Have a bit of a think. Come back. Send us some more of your questions. Do go and pop on the feedback. Thank you so much to Lloyds. We love doing these sessions. We love talking to everyone and talking through what's going on. In a world of change, it's important to keep talking. It's important to keep turning up and come and talk to us. So we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.